Hey y'all,
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of
Smith and
Waker, where we talk about everything women
motorcycles.
and fun.
Awesome.
And wait a second,
You're an awfully a long distance from me over there. Who are all these people?
who are you all? Huh, who are you?
I'm Kristen.
And what do you ride, Kristen?
I ride a 2022 Heritage Classic.
Huh. And how about you, young lady?
Yeah, I'm Tanya, and I ride a 2005 Sportster Custom 1200.
Awesome. Miss Tanya.
I'm Tanya, better known as Tanya Jean, and I ride a 2015 Dyna Lowrider.
Awesome. Jeannie.
And I'm Jean, and I ride a 2021 Indian Scout.
And I am Jen, and I ride an 18 Heritage Classic.
And all of these ladies are Lady Riders of Minnesota.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked a lot about the fact that we started this group a while back. We talked about our reasoning for doing it, and then we thought it might be kind of fun to have everybody come in and with different perspectives, different walks of life, to talk about what their experiences have been like with us. We get some feedback. I'm assuming you all participated in the survey that was put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, shake your head, Jen.
Yes.
So some of what we heard was that a number of the ladies that responded had never ridden with us, and part of the reason why they didn't ride with us was because they felt worried that they didn't know anybody, worried that that they were going to feel like an outsider because they didn't ride a Harley. So Jean can probably speak to that. So maybe let's walk the table, and we'll talk about, not walk on the table, we'll just walk along the table. And we'll talk about what your first experience with Lady Riders of Minnesota was, or if you're not familiar or can't recall when you first was, because we've had so many, your favorite ride with Lady Riders of Minnesota.
Those are two different topics.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah, the first one I did, I think it must have been 2021 International Female Ride Day.
Okay.
Were we off in 2020?
We were off in 2020.
Yeah.
Well, we did it in August.
Yeah.
In August, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was the first one that I did. And I had been riding the whole year before by myself because pandemic. And I didn't even know it existed. So my friend Nancy is the one that told me about the group, who lives in California, soon to be here. And so I just decided to take a chance. It sounded completely intimidating, and I thought I can survive one uncomfortable day, and I did, and it changed my life.
Awesome. And we're so glad you took the chance.
Me too.
Yeah, same with my first experience with this group. It's been amazing overall. I have so many anecdotes, but if I had to choose one, the first time I walked in to actually look to purchase a motorcycle, I was getting lots of advice, didn't really know what I was doing at all yet, didn't have my endorsement, nothing, came into the shop, generally knew which bike I wanted, was getting a lot of advice from other people, and then Molly came over and noticed that I was looking, helped me confirm what I already knew was that was my bike, because it fit me well, it was what I was looking for, it sounded the right way, it just fit. And it was the beginning of, Molly gave me a card and said, hey, we have this group, I think you should look into it. I didn't right away, talked to my brother, and he said, you have to look into that group because you will find some of your very best friends. And he was right.
Yeah.
He was right. You're all right, because I've met so many different people that I would not have otherwise met, and it has increased the value of what my life means outside of taking care of children and things that I do for other people, that to have something like that and have real friends that I know care about me in a way that I see often, it's been amazing. And so it's not just about, it's a motorcycle for me, but it's the friendships that came along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So my first experience with the group was also the 2021 Lady Riders of Minnesota. But I had a couple crutches with me that time. A couple of my friends,
Old boyfriends?
We decided to do well, they wanted to participate in this ride, so I agreed, or I was also interested in it. But my most memorable experience or memory is my first group ride with the group outside of Lady Riders is when we went to Wisconsin Dells. I was on the waiting list and someone canceled, and I didn't know anyone, but I wanted to get out and ride more with women who are non-judgmental, and I kind of got that vibe from Lady Riders Female International Ride Day. So I showed up at Harley-Davidson. I didn't know who was going to be my bunkmate. I didn't know any of the women. I do remember Monica came up and gave me a big hug, and I was like, "Did she know me? Did I meet her somewhere?" But it was just like, just feeling welcome and knowing that I made the right decision, even though I didn't know anyone at the ride or that was going on that ride. And so just that first, one-on-one encounter experience without my girlfriends with me, and just me doing something on my own that I really enjoy, and I wanted to do it with women and not just by myself. So I wanted to get outside of my comfort zone. So it's probably my most memorable moment. It's just that first hug from Monica when I'm just like, I'm going on this ride for the weekend with women I don't know. And then my bunkmate, she ended up being a wonderful woman, and we met probably 2 minutes before we decided we were going to sleep together.
Who was your bunkmate?
Oh my God, I'm so named. The dancer. What's her name?
Catherine.
Catherine, thank you. Catherine. Catherine was my bunkmate.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's awesome. And thank you, I'm back. As we know.
Your brain is got capacity for other things.
So I was scrolling back thinking about when did I connect with this amazing group of people, and the very first ride I went on was just a little supper ride over to Psycho Susie's. And I'm not a shy person by nature. So for me, I know it's a shock, isn't it? So to me, to go out with a whole group of people, like walk in and not know anybody, it's like no big deal. I'll go do it. I don't care. But sometimes when you do that, so I don't know. Am I jumping ahead to another question if I venue off into this? So I've had experiences with other groups where you go to an event and they greet you at the door, and beyond that, you're non-existent because you don't fit the main demographics of the group. So it's just sort of, and literally one of the events that I had been to that was like that was at Psycho Susie's. So I thought, okay, I'll go to this thing. So I don't even know, I don't think I met you guys here. I think I met you all at Psycho Susie's. And so I rode to Psycho Susie's, and it was just like, oh, you're Jean. Oh, hi, welcome. I'm like, well, hi. And the thing that amazed me from my past experiences, kind of niggling in the back of your head, was like, everybody talks to everybody. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter your age, your anything. There is nothing. We are all equal on every sense of the level, and we are all so interested in learning about each other and establishing these friendships. And they're not, the biggest takeaway for me from this group is, to me, the people that I've met, there are no superficial. This is an elevator friendship. This is women who know each other, and we know our weaknesses, we know our strengths, we celebrate our strengths, and we lift each other up. Mm-hmm. And going to that first event was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I mean, and there was one guy, it was the young guy that works in the Harley-Davidson and he works in the clothing department. No, he's a cashier. I don't remember his name.
Julian?
Julian, yes. Julian was there. And he was like, oh, I feel like the odd man out, ha ha. And they're like, oh, you're just one of us. I mean, it was just like everybody was so fun. And people got up and table hopped, you know, and moved around so everybody could visit with everybody. And I know I talk a lot. But it was really, really, to me, it was the energy of that group. And like, I walk away going like, yeah, this is a really cool group of women.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one that really stuck in my mind was, we gone for a ride, I think it was over in Wisconsin, and I followed you back here to Harley-Davidson.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a conversation in the dark of night in the parking lot, and Molly and I shared a few things with each other that I'm like, oh golly, I don't know that I've ever told this to anybody, but it was just like, you just feel that there's this giant umbrella of acceptance, and no one judges you for anything, and you can just talk about whatever you're feeling. And it was just like Tanya said earlier, was you don't know how much it enriches your life till you look back at your life before this group. And you know, it's just wow.
So speaking of demographics, when you mentioned demographics from our survey, any idea on the largest percentage of the age, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, largest percentage of women that responded to that survey?
Is this a test to see if we watched last week's podcast?
A little bit. Yeah.
I would say 50s.
Yes, 50s. 47% of the respondents were in their 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you take that, the next one is 40s at 24.5%. The next one is 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So at 22.5%. So we've got we have a slightly older crowd, which
Wiser.
Wiser crowd.
yeah, we've celebrated
We've had
far
more
more
life
birthdays
experience.
than others.
Life experience.
And that doesn't mean that the younger crowd is not invited. In fact, I think they could find some value in hanging out with us who have been through the ringer a couple of times. But right now, that's what our demographics is. So
That's great.
yeah, Miss Jen.
So, my first experience was showing up at a dinner ride, and I will selfishly admit, I showed up at the dinner ride to meet Molly. That was really my only intention, and I was so nervous. But really, for anyone that doesn't know the story, when I got into riding, I didn't know anyone that rode, literally. And I found Molly through a forum on a website, reached out, asked her if she'd be my mentor, and she was graciously accepted and started answering all my ridiculous questions about riding. And
Crazy.
well, yes, but they felt ridiculous at the time because I just knew so little. And when I showed up at that dinner ride, it really was selfishly to meet you in person.
Oh, I knew that. We talked about that.
And then, but I met other people, but that was my focus, I guess, at that point. So I guess my first experience with Lady Riders was going to Duluth. There were 6 of us. It was a small group that went to Duluth. And it will forever be one of my most magical memories. It was such an intimate trip, and it was lifelong forging of friendships. It was learning so much about riding, because it was, I think, in an intimate setting, you just get an opportunity to really learn. And the weather was amazing. Like, there were so many things about it that as a new rider really kicked off this, what has become an absolute passion for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You want to go to the next question?
Yeah. Go back down this way.
Sure.
All right. I thought I had it written out. But I don't have it written out as well as I thought. We're not going to cut that out. So, yeah. When thinking about the differences you've experienced between the way we ride versus other groups that you've ridden with, co-ed groups, other women's groups, whatever, what are some of the differences that actually riding, like, what are the differences that come to mind that you note?
I have really only rode a few times with another group. It was a co-ed group out of Shakopee.
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 I can't help it. I'm not from there. I make up my own names.
And totally, absolutely different vibe. You know, and Molly knows this, I've called her before when I've ridden with other groups or even actually other individuals, and because because of my inexperience with riding with other groups, I have to say that I've been so spoiled. I mean, this group is like, we do things so well. You know, from the lead to the sweep to the
knock on all the wood.
you know, and yeah, I mean, there's mistakes, right? But I mean, overall, it's the fact that no one's ever left behind. I mean, everybody is there's safety. There's, you know, people are always accounted for. It's nobody.
There was this one time.
There
was this
I
one
am so
time.
sorry, Kara. I still feel terrible about that.
She went to get gas and we all left.
We didn't know, and there were.
No, but she didn't tell anybody. She went to go get gas, and so we looked around. We're like, hey, let's get going. And so we all got on and jumped online, and off we went. And she wasn't there.
But I do love the safety aspect of what is here, because I think that, you know, motorcycle riding inherently has this stigma to it that motorcycle riders are kind of idiots, and they, you know, there's those few, like, people who drive cars that drive like crazy people, and I love that this group really represents, you know, safety. And I mean, yeah, we still have so much fun, right? Our riding isn't about riding and weaving in and out of cars and acting like crazy people. I mean, I just, you know, and sure, there's, I guess, so my whole experience outside of this group has been just people that kind of want to ride crazy, and I just, I don't want to be a part of representing that community, I guess.
Yeah.
I want people to feel safe when they ride with us, and that we teach safety and encourage people to take classes and become a better rider and be open to feedback. So
We reflect maybe a safer sect of the riding community that a lot of people overlook because they're so focused on those that ride a little bit less safely. Not that there's anything wrong with that for you, we just choose not to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there anything left to add to that?
You mentioned some of what you experienced just on a personal level.
Yeah.
Right,
When
and
you rode with others.
yeah, and riding with others, and I've ridden with other groups, and you know, the being left behind, not so much even the being left behind, but being a newer rider and getting put in the back of the trail, the back of the pack, and you're riding along like, where are they? Can't, you know, praying that there's going to be a stop sign somewhere that they're going to wait for you, type of thing. The other that I've experienced is riding with the leads who are very aggressive riders. And, you know, it's, hey, I ride 90 miles an hour and y'all can just try to keep up, and that's not fun. Even if, you know, I've been riding for, you know, quite a while now, and it's like, yeah, I'm still not going to do 90. I don't care, you know, and I'm to the point now where if that's what you're going to do, I'm not going to bother with it. But when you're trying to be part of the group or whatever, it's like you just kind of end up getting left further and further behind, and it ceases to be fun.
Right.
And when it's not fun, you're more stressed, and when you're more stressed, things can happen because you're focused on that instead of being aware of your surroundings or whatever. So it becomes more dangerous.
Right.
I've been in a group where, you know, it's basically playing dodge 'em with the cars. And that ride, I think I lasted about 15 miles, and it was like, no, not doing it. I just took the next exit and texted the person in the group that I knew and said, heading for home, because it was weaving in and out of traffic at that high rate of a speed on the freeway in the city in a group, and you got people climbing up your hind end because they don't think you're going fast enough, and that is unnerving. And so it's like, no, not going to
And
bother.
being a newer rider too adds to that
Right.
anxiety as well.
That was one thing that I really love about this group is the speed limit. You know, it's a speed limit, it's not a suggestion. It's the speed limit. So when we ride with this group, we ride together, and whoever's leading isn't 3 miles ahead of the pack. Everybody stays together. And if we have to break it up for size wise, that's great, but it's not scary. And the newbies are insulated.
Yeah.
They're not left out there. I mean, I remember riding home on the freeway with you two, and one of you in the front and the other in the back, and it's like, okay, and then you
Squeezed her together.
squeezed me together, and then when it got to my exit, we all came off together. I peeled off to go to my house, and you guys got back on the freeway. And I was like, yes, okay, you know, but that's what you do. We take care of each other.
Yeah.
So for me, I ride with the chapter, and my chapter, they're a pretty safe chapter. You know, I really don't have any complaints about the chapter that I ride with. What I enjoy and appreciate with riding with Lady Riders is that it's a group of women and we empower each other. And that's really important to me because when I'm riding with my chapter, it's a majority of men. You know, there are some women and we have the Ladies of Harleys group, but I just like being empowered, being lifted up. We, you know, we inspire each other, we lift each other up, you know, friendships are made, and I don't find it to be cliquey. Like, you know, even if I'm standing in a corner and I'm being my skittish, shy self, which no one ever believes, I get so
for about 10 minutes.
I get having social anxiety, but someone will come up to me and engage and, you know, start a conversation with me, you know, and so I really appreciate that. You know, it's just, you know, it's kind of unexplainable other than just saying it's just a group of women. We all have struggles. We all have a strength, you know, and we're willing to share and open up and just, I'm able to just be my true self when I'm riding with the Lady Riders. And then also, you know, being part of the group for a couple of years, I also take that responsibility that if I see someone over there by themselves, that I go over and introduce myself and engage in a conversation because I know what it feels like when no one does come over and reaches out to you. So, yeah, so. And this is a very safe group to ride with too, you know. So.
And just to build on what you said, that question in no way is to challenge or speak derogatory towards any other group.
No.
Mostly, I think the thought process behind that question was kind of setting an example for ourselves about which will lead to other questions, but also if people are leading at group rides or are have people that ride with them and they're not consistent and they're wondering why there's not that consistency there, maybe some of the feedback that we're giving will help them understand what they could do better as well, so that would grow their ridership with their groups as well.
Great point.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I certainly, that group that I rode with on Tuesday nights, I never want, you know,
No, it's not.
I never wanted to
anybody.
come off
No,
because
No.
I'm trying to diss some other group. It just wasn't comfortable for me.
Right, and I think
Yeah.
that's why other groups are out there, is because people find the group that's comfortable for them.
Exactly right.
You know, and if God, you know, God love you, if you want to do 90 miles an hour down the freeway, there's a place for you. It just wasn't the place for me.
Right, but then, and for some of those groups also, there's a flip side of that where they wonder why, not those groups specifically, but that we have had feedback from other people. It's like, why is this growing? How do you have so much consistency and growth? And this is why. These reasons are why. So
It's predictable.
Yeah.
And they're exactly what they're going to get when they get with us.
Right.
And it stays the same.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Something that I thought about was, since I am in my, I don't know what year you would call it of writing, kind of year and a half, 2 years.
Get a little break.
Had a little break.
Little
But,
break.
not a break. But stayed active with the group, so that's something, right? When you're not writing, you stay active with the group. Another topic.
Yeah.
But, so I haven't ridden with another group, but I have plans on riding with other people. So I'm very comfortable. Like, this was a great place for me to start, and that I'm going to stay. But when I think forward, there's a lot of my friends who still live in Iowa or other places that I want to go down and visit, and I'd like to ride with them. And they might have different styles of riding, and now I know what my comfort zone is, and we can kind of check out and talk and have a conversation about those things before going down. The thing I do appreciate, and I held back on my first experience with Lady Riders story sort of because of this, but what I found unique about this group and how it makes it different, possibly, from other groups, is that even when you make what you might think is a mistake or something that would be embarrassing or you want to recoil, it's never chastised. It's never, there might be some, funny banter, but only if it's only if it's funny to both people. It's so my very, very first experiences, so I'll combine two because I had incidences on both of these. Small. First dinner ride out to Lucky 13. It was my first group ride. I was getting really comfortable, really fast riding solo. Went from not riding at all to being endorsed to being in a parking lot to on the street to on the highway, and now I'm going to ride with a group within like 3. I was motivated. Yeah, I was motivated. I wanted to be with y'all, so
I'm going to do this.
But I was so scared on that first dinner ride, and it was raining. And there were hills, and it was St. Paul, full of hills. And Stefan had taught me how to use downshifting, thank God, on, I'd already knew
My
how.
Stefan?
Yes, your Stefan.
My Stefan. Good job, Stefan.
I'm going to bring that up later. It's one of the other questions. But I already knew how to do downshifting instead of braking for safety reasons. But I was so glad to be parked when we got to Lucky 13s. I got off the bike, and the way my bike kind of works is I can put the kickstand down, but it's really quick to pop back up at me. And when you're nervous or anxiety, I didn't know anyone yet.
Yeah. So you're just ready to get off your bike.
And I just wanted to get off the bike. Yeah. I put it down. I felt the kickstand was down. I didn't check that it was firmly engaged. Parked next to Molly. Fortunately, there was not a line of bikes. Got off, and
it went with you?
It just went.
It fainted.
It fainted.
It's a fainting bike.
And my not knowing anyone yet, except really the two of you, was like.
I think my reaction
I
was
just
like,
blew it.
oh!
And then you were so kind to me, and there must have been at least 20 or more people on that ride.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it just seemed larger because I was like,
yes, it felt like that. Yeah, that was
felt like
first ride.
Yes, they felt like 300.
But it was used as a teaching moment. You came over, and there was no. It was funny, but there was no shame involved.
Oh yeah.
And other people came over because it happens. People were started talking about this happened to be this happened to be this time, this happened to be, and then as the season went on, I saw it does happen to other people. And, it just happened on my very first ride. Let's just get it out of the way. But something that could have been really negative and caused me to go, I knew I couldn't do this. I knew I wasn't going to fit in. There could have been so many messages that I could have given myself that if the group wasn't engaged and supportive in the way that it is, I would have absolutely gone to all of those negative mindsets of sort of those lies that we tell each other or tell ourselves about who we are, what are, as a brand new writer, that's hard not to do, and people can give up. I think I would have been more likely to be like, I'm kind of afraid of this bike, or I'm just not cut out for this, or I don't want people to make fun of me. There was none of that. It turned into an experience of learning how do you pick your bike up. So how do you use physics to pick up your bike? Learned how to do that. After that, I have no problem picking up my bike. I don't know now with my knee, but I might need to practice that again.
You still know the right technique.
But I know
you
the
may not
technique.
physically be able to do that right now, but you know the right technique.
And other people learned, and it became a topic of education later on that season. So it was
Anybody else
really
have an experience
positive.
like that?
Oh, I sure do. I sure do. Did you want me to share it?
Sure, if you wanna.
So that said Duluth trip, I mean, Molly, you can share it too.
Oh, it's your experience.
We got to the end of, it was Gunflint Trail, right?
Almost
To the end. I mean, we were there. And we were so excited to get to that waterfall. And the road suddenly, I mean, very suddenly, turned to gravel.
No, it was sand.
It was.
Well, yes,
soft
it's sand, you know.
Sand,
And
soft sand.
Molly,
Soft, gushy sand.
Molly stopped rather quickly, and
Like,
yeah, and I stopped behind her, and my bike, it just faded. The sand was so soft and squishy. And I wasn't like sad about it. I mean, I just gotten my bike, like a week before?
right, you got it. We left for the trip, and that was when you got your bike right before we left for the trip.
It's my brand new baby. And he's laying there, so sad. And what was so funny about it is I literally had it was 5 other women telling me how to pick this bike up. And it's hot as H out. And
in all fairness, you had 4 other women trying to tell you how to do it, and then Monica came up and said, "Stop."
Everybody stopped telling her what to do.
Put your butt against the seat. You gotta pick it up yourself.
Yes. So
we'll help you, but you're going to do it.
Yes, but it was lots of coaching, and then Monica thankfully was like, "Okay, everybody stop." And it did take me a while to get that bike up, and I will readily admit I got back on my bike and I shed some tears. Like and it wasn't out of embarrassment, it wasn't out of shame. It was like a pride thing a little bit, and because it was like my first kind of that questioning of yourself. Like, can I do this? Am I, whatever? And I'll tell you, I've dropped my bike several more times now.
Now you're a pro.
I'm really good at it.
And I dropped it in class. You know what I learned in class? How to pick my bike.
Right, exactly. So, but to what Tanya was talking about and has been said here time and time again, there's always that opportunity for coaching and learning, and that's what's great is nobody makes you feel any certain way for dropping your bike, or for, whatever happens. It's always just an opportunity. Your bike didn't start on our trip, and everybody just rallies around, and you figure out what's wrong, and you go with it. So it's great.
I've not ridden with any other groups. But I actually did. I was like, well, I shouldn't just limit myself. I should, I had such a, I have had and continue to have such a great experience riding in this group. I was like, I shouldn't just limit myself there. I should try some other things. And other groups have been hard to access. And it doesn't, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, so I was like, okay, well, I tried that. So, I'm going to put my energies here. So I haven't really ridden with other groups.
And I would backpack on that, or backpack.
Piggyback.
Because
You do have to words.
Since I started riding with this group, I think I've only been with my chapter once. So I'm riding less and less with my chapter.
I don't know what you are, but sorry.
Well, they're getting my dues, so you're okay. But yeah, so I just feel comfortable, and I feel like this is where I belong. If I choose to ride with that group, I have the opportunity, but I just feel like I found my place here. So
That's awesome.
I'm going to add one quick piggyback onto your piggyback is as a it doesn't matter what you ride. We don't care if you ride a Harley. We don't care if you ride an Indian. We don't care if you ride a Royal Enfield. If you ride a Honda. I started out in a Honda Shadow. I had a Royal Enfield, which I dumped at the motorcycle station.
That was so funny. Oh my God.
Yeah, so anyway, but it doesn't matter. It really, honestly, we are not like brand snobs. It doesn't.
Kristen started on a Can-Am.
Yeah, Can-Ams. It doesn't matter. 3 wheels, 2 wheels. It's women having a great time with their motorcycles or.
Well, it's gone beyond being about what we ride.
Yeah.
Or that we ride.
It's that it's the fact that we ride.
It's open connections.
Well, and Molly and I were talking about this the other day. Some of the get-togethers that we've had have gone beyond the motorcycle. People have made friendships. They've made connections. One of the examples I always bring up to people when I talk about the connections that are made, we had a overnight, and we were doing this activity kind of get to know you thing, and there were 2 women who were struggling with things going on with their children, the same things, but they didn't realize it until they brought it up, that that's what they were struggling with. So they were able to connect and share resources. Huge difference. We talked about, we connected on mental health. You know, how many people, you know, I'm very open about the fact that if I'm happy and I know it, it's probably my meds.
Better living through pharmacology.
So it goes way beyond the motorcycle. That may be the catalyst that brings us together, but it's not what keeps us stuck together. And you are stuck with us.
I do have to say though that Jen, you really did normalize fainting for me. And it actually was a gift, though. It just happens, and you get up and you keep going. So yeah.
And no matter how embarrassing, I mean, because I don't think it could have gotten any more embarrassing. Taking the motorcycle safety class, refresher class, and I was there 10 minutes. It was the first.
She was the first bike out.
First bike out for the first
practice
thing, and
it was adorable.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean, she's out in the middle, and all of a sudden, just boom, and we're like, well, there it is. You know, it's like we got it out of the way.
Somebody has to be the first, you know.
So let's see, we're coming up on time here. So we talked a lot about the things that seem to be going well. How about if we do a little bit? It's always the uncomfortable stuff, but we need to hear it in order to grow. What do we need to work on?
Oh, I'll take this one.
Okay.
Oh no, it's going to be good.
God.
No, it's a good thing. You all the two of you do a fantastic job of this, and you are two people, and you need to share the responsibility. And,
I receive that.
Yeah, and let other people in. Or not. That's not what I mean, really. What I mean is like, let us help you.
Delegate,
yeah. And because also it's a valued role to be able to participate and give back to this group. And people want
absolutely
roles.
That's great feedback.
So yeah.
That was great feedback. I think for me, sometimes I'm afraid to ask because I don't want to hinder someone or overwhelm someone. It's not so much that I don't want people to help, it's that I'm afraid to ask for help because I don't, number one, I don't want to be rejected. And number two, I don't want to put a responsibility off on someone that they may not want to take. So, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. It does, but I think as adults, we sometimes forget that we're adults and people can say no.
Or they can say, sure, I'll do it, but can you coach me on that? Which I would be, Monica or either one, we would love to do that.
Yeah, or somebody you can piecemeal things off. Somebody can be responsible for this part, someone else can be responsible for that part. And I think my take on it is we all value what you two have started, and at least for me personally, there is no way I would ever want to do anything to jeopardize the integrity of this group. I take this group so seriously that
then that's an action that we'll take. So we'll put that down at, we're going to start involving you all in, and I want you to feel like you can say no.
I would like for people to approach us too and say, hey, we want to take the lead on this, so that we can then, like, if you need help with planning or doing or executing, let us help you do that. I mean, it's overwhelming at first, but once you start doing it, then you could be teaching classes on Google Maps.
Well, and I think sometimes I feel for you two because you have lives, you have jobs, and it's like, how on earth do they shoehorn all this in?
Well, and we know you get so many questions.
Yeah,
my gosh, when you plan these weekend trips and stuff, you are so graceful about answering questions, but I think sometimes people forget you're getting like a bazillion questions.
And you're getting a bazillion of the same question from 50 other people.
So those of us that have been around, like, if we can help, like, answer some of those questions or whatever, because it does get a lot. I mean, it's a lot for you guys to think about. You know, you're so thoughtful in the stops we take and the amount of time and down to every single detail. And it's like, we know you love it. It's clear. The passion is there, but like, it's okay to let us help filter some of that.
And I would just suggest that it be like, I know people want to help and they mean well, but I think it should be more of a commitment, whether there's a committee involved, where it's not just like, one day it's this person, one day it's that person. I think it needs to be maybe a rotating committee or something like that, but not too many hands in the pot. Where
Yeah.
you have something that's
The
uniform,
consistency
and then you
is what's
pass it
beautiful
on,
about this.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
in
Committed
6
to the
months or
mission.
every season
Yeah.
to a new group.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that would be my
And
suggestion.
I'm going to speak out of turn to something that you had actually shared with Monica that I thought was a great idea that we hadn't really touched on. Whenever we do, like when we had Galentine's this month, there were so many new people, and those new people come in and they're so overwhelmed, and they're first of all, to attend any event like this, you're brave. I'm speaking directly to whoever's watching this. I commend your braveness. It's amazing that you're doing that. I don't know that I could do it. To have a Daisy ambassador is what you called it. A Daisy ambassador. Someone who, like you have the name tag.
I have the name
That's
tag.
who I thought.
I have the name tag.
What is it like when you can walk up to every single person, shake hands, ask them their name, write it down, so now you get double reinforcement on
Yeah.
what the name is.
And trust me, I will forget who you are. Even people that I've known for so long, my brain goes absolutely blank. It's like,
Who are you?
and my go-to, how would you like me to spell your name today?
You just gave your secret away.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this.
Yeah, well, see, now you know when my brain is on overload
So
from
fun.
There
there's
were
72
people there.
72 people, and multiple of this name and multiple of that names, and okay, we already have 2 Pams, so your Pam, what is your last initial,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and you make, hi, welcome, come on in, this is a great group of people, here's a name tag, and then, I try to tell people, or direct people, join that group over there, they're friendly, that group over there, they're friendly, because you see, everybody you walk up to is friendly, and just so people kind of feel like,
But having people that are designated for that in those kind of events, to your point, consistency.
yeah.
The other side too is that being somebody who feels overly responsible for everything, like if there's a day I'm not wearing the bandana, then I can hang back. So it's got both, but most of the time I'm going to want to wear it. Like that. I thought bandana. I was like Daisy bandanas would work.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Amazon. There's Amazon link. It's probably already ordered it.
It'll be there in 12.
Any minute.
Yeah, so I think my thoughts on that are somewhat similar in just watching how hard you work. Because when I first sort of met this group, it was much, much smaller than it is right now. So watching how much larger the group has become in such a short amount of time, that can overwhelm any type of activity or organization. If there's a lot of growth really, really fast, it's a good thing, and it can be exceptionally difficult. So
You're
that
up to what, 1,600, or if you ask the
Husband's
husbands?
18 million.
Every time I ask them, it's a different number. I think there's like 25 million in that group.
yeah, the idea of the asking for help or the delegation, like what you've said, that is a great. I love your idea of the Daisy ambassador. The thing I thought about too is that mentorship piece of the new people coming in that may not.
That's something we talk a lot about.
May not feel comfortable, because it is hard to just show up at a group event. And some of the comments I think that were coming back were like, I don't know how to show up, and even, I know everybody, and it's still hard to show up in a group of 80 women sometimes, just depending on personality too.
Right.
You get there and it's fun, and you're like, well, what was I so worried about? But at home, you're like, I don't know.
That was one of the things that in the survey, one of the survey responses, one of the gals said, I wish that there was somebody outside the door that would meet me, and then I could walk in with them, because I don't have anybody to walk in with. And that's where a Daisy ambassador would be.
Oh, absolutely.
So that Daisy
Great.
ambassador piece, I think that's an excellent way of putting that kind of idea of either somebody that you've got an individual instead of the group that you don't know, and that you have the chance to interact with maybe that individual beforehand with the mentoring idea. That's how you became involved, and look at how different this has made everything. So I think the idea of being mentored is one of the first steps of feeling that somebody invites you in, and then you can kind of expand on your own from that. And
Well, and I think when at the Galentine's Day thing, when I was doing the name tags, And I started the name tags because I have a heck of a time remembering everybody's name, and it's just like, you know what, if you got a tag on, it just makes it, the association, it just makes it so much easier. But a couple of ladies came in the door and they said, oh, this is my first time, I don't know anybody. And I said, well, here's the deal. You walk in and you don't know anybody, by the time you leave, you're going to have a room full of new friends.
Yeah.
You know,
So
and
true.
that's
awesome.
it's walking in, it's walking across that threshold can seem so scary, but once you're in, you're just like this giant hug of women who are there to
Literally and figuratively.
Literally. Yes, we are huggers. We might ask you if you kind of step back a little bit if you're not a hugger, but not so much for handshaking. But it's scary walking in the door, but once you're past that threshold, there is this wonderful world of women just waiting. And the thing is, you're not alone. You're not alone, because there's other people who feel the exact same way. You just haven't met them yet.
Right.
Tanya, you got anything?
So mine is going to be a little bit selfish, and I didn't put it on the survey, and I said I'm going to be truthful today.
I want you to.
Okay. I will say you're doing a better job of it, Molly.
Okay.
But being mindful of people who have dietary restrictions
Yeah.
when we're going on rides. Me, myself, now, just from my experience, I do oftentimes pack my own lunch because I don't know where we're going to end up. And I know also a lot of times when we're out on the road, especially back roads, we don't have very many options. But when we're in the cities, having events sometimes, I know for me it's my response. I try to be mindful and bring something that, you know, fits within my dietary needs. But just when we're doing like dinner rides and things like that, maybe just consider, you know, folks that do have dietary restrictions.
That's good feedback. Yeah, and sometimes it's gluten, sometimes it's vegan, gluten, vegan,
vegetarian.
And there are some people, truthfully, like we got some feedback on the whole buffet situation, which honestly, whenever you're having a group of people that large, like we had at Galentine's, that's really the only way that you can successfully have that kind of a group of people. When it's a smaller group, I probably would not do a buffet, just to clarify, because there are many people who are being mindful of their weight, who are who have had surgeries that will not allow them to eat, to the point that that would be within their budget. And for some people, it's not in their budget. I mean, $30 for a buffet that you're going to have a half a plate of is not always budget conscious. So those kind of things we are aware of. But if it's a large group like we had, it just makes the most sense for us to get service.
Well, and I think whenever we pick something, we try to be a little more mindful of, do they have a few options, right? Now, it may not be a vegan restaurant, it may not be a gluten-free restaurant, but do they have gluten-free and vegan options? And absolutely, they will pick it.
And you helped me grow in that way, because I never thought that it was something that I needed to be mindful of, because it wasn't something that personally I had ever experienced the way that you do. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's something that everybody should.
I just assumed that they had salads. You were good.
I need protein. Give me beans. Well, I'll bring up the rear. I'll sweet. How's that?
I would say also though, like, it's so hard. This group has gotten so big, and it's so hard to make. You know, you're never going to make everybody happy all the time. So I would say always come in to a ride with assume good intent. You know, and it doesn't mean it's all going to go correctly or go, you know.
I love that.
But assume good intent, because it's always there.
Sometimes we go on long rides and we miss our reservations and we just don't have to go.
Yeah, and I will say, one thing I will tell you that I know that we can do better, and this is more me than Monica, I felt like whenever we were going on longer rides, whenever we were going to like Door County or the Dells or somewhere where we were going overnight, that I needed to be planning in a mindful way that we stopped and ate somewhere, like physically sat down and ate. But after the trip back from Door County, I told Monica, you know, I just don't think that that needs to be a priority unless it is something that we're going out there for. Like Doc's was different. We went to Doc's Harley-Davidson out that way, and they had a restaurant, so that was different. But on the way back, I had stressed myself out so much about finding a restaurant to stop at and eat at, because I didn't want people to think that we were starving them. But if we're mindful of our gas stops, like Quick Trip, sorry, come and go, I'm talking about you.
Whatever gas station.
Yeah.
Whatever gas
But
station.
like, there are those gas stations that are accommodating to those things, so we'll be more mindful going forward that we make better use of our gas stops so that we can fold those things in, especially when we're trying to get home before dark.
Right, yeah.
So that kind of feedback,
Right.
I love. Give that to us, because that's how we make things
Right.
better.
And also, I think too, like I mentioned, I always carry a snack, so it is maybe everyone should have some sort of snack and water inside their saddlebag.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like having your bike gassed up when it's time to go.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And if you don't, you don't, right?
Right,
But
right,
that doesn't
right.
mean we're going to stop 12 times.
Right, right.
You should plan accordingly or not.
Right.
You know, I can go without water for, it feels like forever.
I cannot.
And you cannot.
I've emptied this twice since we've been sitting here. So. Anything to add to that?
I do have something to add, and I'm kind of glad you took a risk and said what you said, because I really debated bringing this up and how do you bring it up in like an effective way to be constructive but sensitive. Because I love this idea of like a Daisy mentor. Maybe somehow this could be along that line, but I have heard chatter before, and I've had it happen myself in rides where there's maybe someone in the ride, or maybe it's more than one person, and it could be someone who's an experienced rider, it could be a new rider. It's been me before, who is affecting the group ride somehow. Maybe they daze out when they ride. Maybe they.
It's my alarm. So.
Maybe it's that they hesitate a lot in turns, and so the group tends to fall back behind that person. Maybe they break a lot. Whatever it is. I think there's always opportunities for all of us to grow. And I've even heard you two say, it's like, you never stop learning and growing as a rider, ever. And we should never stop learning and growing. And I get that it can be hard to give feedback to people about how they're riding and how that may or may not be affecting the group as a rider. I'll never forget on that Duluth trip again, Dawn, I can never remember her. Yeah,
Bollinger?
giving me some feedback, and she's a pretty direct person, and I remember at first kind of being a little bit like, ooh, that felt a little like stingy, but I'm telling you, the feedback she gave me changed my riding, a lot. And so I think that if we can all be open to, maybe if we see something like that going on, be open to like taking people's feedback about how your riding is and how you are showing up in a group ride. Because I'll tell you, like when we went up to
Bakefield?
Nope, to have our delicious food.
Fargo.
Yes, Fargo.
The garlic ride.
The garlic ride. It was funny because there were quite a few new people on that ride, and something about that ride, we rode in this like a perfect like formation, even through the rain, and I was like, somebody should have a drone and be watching this. I mean, there was something epically cool about the way that we all rode, and not saying it always has to be like that, but it was really like magical. Like, so I guess my feedback would just be that we all be open to the thought of
Open to giving and receiving.
giving and receiving.
Yeah.
Because I can be open to receiving, but if you all don't tell me about it, then I'm
And then
not
there are
aware.
people who aren't open to receiving it.
I think it's on the delivery. I think
agree.
that
I agree.
as human beings, we need to be mindful of our approach and our intent. And if we feel like our intent in the moment that we're going to deliver that information could be received less than in a loving way, then maybe we pause on it and come back. I mean, that's just, empathy. That's what that is.
It's hard sometimes to deliver difficult messages.
It is very hard, but if we're angry, it makes it even harder to think through that. So, and it is when you're in a situation where you feel like your safety is being compromised, sometimes it is hard to deliver that in a constructive way. So that's why I said maybe we pause.
Yeah. We'll have to think that one through and
Yeah.
figure out if there's a way that we can help with all of that.
Or maybe even just throwing out there as a suggestion, like at the end of the night, not maybe we
Don't point out one
point out
person,
anyone,
just-
maybe bring the concerns to whoever the ambassador is, and then we just sit down in a group and we discuss 5-10 minutes on our ride, what did we like and what can we improve or something like that. So we're not pointing someone out, but we're just bringing suggestions that everyone could possibly use the information.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So final quick question here. If you could give one piece of advice to a new rider, and I'll let you interpret as we go through what new rider means quickly. Keep it, like we're just not a diatribe. As I'm doing a diatribe right now on how to do it. What advice would you give to a new rider?
Take a class. Take your basic class. And take your intermediate every year. Commit to starting out your season with refreshing yourself on small moves. Turning your bike tight, like backing up.
Backing up, that's a big one. I was surprised at how many people were not comfortable with backing, just because they've never been taught.
Yeah, so I'd say take class.
Great advice.
Oh, pressure's on. Let's see. What was the question again?
New riders.
New riders.
However you interpret what a new rider is.
Don't be afraid. I mean, you're going to be afraid. That's just the fact, human nature. You're going to have fears. What I try to do is I take one big thing each year, and take it into small pieces, break it down into small pieces, and work on that for the season. Learning to lean was one. Last year it was freeways. Okay, you could not have paid me enough money to go on a freeway by myself. And I would just get on, go one exit, get off, and circle back around. Then I go two, and just baby steps. But give yourself a goal each season of something to work on to improve your skills, not just your basic skills, but the skills for things that intimidate you or you think you're not good enough at.
Good, nice. And I would just say practice. Just get on your bike and practice, whether it's 20 minutes a week, 2 hours a week. Just practice. If you're in the city, get outside of the city, get on those back roads, and just ride at your own speed, your own pace. Just practice.
So all of that. But I think really specifically the thing that helped me most as a new rider, and this is when I said I would swing back to something that Stefan did. Before I took the new riders class for the purpose of learning, but also hopefully getting my endorsement, which happened, but I don't think I would have obtained the endorsement had I not done this before. I know this particular shop has this feature. I don't know if other shops have this feature. If you've never driven a manual transmission in a car, the mechanisms, understanding how the physics of the bike work and how your clutch works and how your throttle works and the braking, all of that, there is the opportunity, and it's recommended before you take the class, to actually get on this kind of what is a stationary motorcycle, and it's not going to move. You can make as many mistakes as you want, and there's no consequences for it. You're not going to tip over. Nothing is going to happen. It's a really safe way to practice the clutch work and the braking and the throttling and all of that without any hesitancy or feeling like there's something unsafe that you're going to do that might injure your start. The jump start, yeah. So for me, going into that class, I had already driven a manual transmission, but not for my lifetime, for a few years. And it had been a few years since I'd driven a car with a manual transmission. Getting on that, and it was kind of reversed. The things that I would do with my feet in a car were the things I was going to do with my hands on the bike. So I had to get used to that. But that was the most helpful thing going into that class, because I didn't have to focus so much during the class just figuring out the clutch and the friction zone, and like I already kind of knew what that felt like because of that practice bike.
That's good.
So if you're looking at taking a class, I would highly recommend coming in and using the jump start. I personally found that really helpful, and I think was the key for me, being able to focus on what they wanted to focus on in the class instead of focusing on, well, what do I need to do with my hands right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I see in a lot of the different Facebook groups that I'm in that a lot of women talk about riding in parking lots, and I totally get why you would want to do that, but it's not real life, and you can't. And I actually think it's harder to ride in a parking lot than it is out on the street. So what worked for me was to pick unpopulated roads, and I just went whatever speed felt comfortable to me. And when I first started, I was like, I'm never going to be able to go 65. I'm never going to feel comfortable doing that. And you do, and you don't have to do anything special to make it happen. As you gain confidence and you ride more, that really is that's such annoying advice, and it's true. You have to ride more. That's the only solution is you have to be on your bike and riding. It's the only way that it's going to get easier. So time in the bike and set yourself up on roads that you don't feel stressed on.
The thing I would add to that, Kristen, is that really helped me when I was first starting too, is finding roads that were not very well populated, but one of the harder things for me at first was, and quickly taught me how to do the downshifting piece instead of the braking when you're turning, and using your rear brake and learning how to do that. But to get on, there are plenty of roads that have the clovers.
Oh, the roundabouts.
Just doing the clovers. Find an unpopulated clover, find an unpopulated roundabout, and practice doing that. Because the more you do it, the more comfortable. And the clovers were the hardest. My apologies, Jean. I took Jean on a wild goose chase one time on a clover from a dinner ride that we were not anticipating getting on 494. But man, did we really fast.
baptism by fire.
I went the wrong direction, and it was like, where's Jean and where am I? And
unless you're riding a Honda, where sometimes you stay in the
We do the roundabout.
She's like, watch these guys, they'll keep following me.
And we do. We just keep following.
Molly was at the end. We were like waving each other.
I would add to whenever I think of a new rider, there's two pieces for me. I'll add to this. Women always ask, "What's the right bike for me? What bike should I get?" Go sit on them. Nobody's going to be able to tell you what the right bike is for you except for you.
Absolutely.
Go to different dealerships, try on different bikes, different brands, different sizes. Don't underestimate the fact that you could be on a bigger bike than.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't ever let someone tell you that because you're 5 foot that you can't ride a street glide or a road glide.
Exactly.
I mean,
you can. They're all manageable for whatever size.
Can I just add something to that too before you go to your next one?
Yeah.
Because the other thing that 2 times now I've heard is that I feel weird going into a dealership and asking about sitting on a bike. That's really what they're there for. That really is. That's not out of the norm to ask to sit on bikes. That's normal. You should be sitting on them. You wouldn't go and buy a pair of shoes without trying them on.
Oh, no.
Well, you might if you can return
look
them.
at
But you know what, Monica, that's super great, and I hope I'm not cutting you off, is that I had been to a few dealerships before I ended up buying my bike. And if you walk into a dealership and you don't feel comfortable, move on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Because
that's the one for you.
I'll tell you what, and I'm not trying to shamelessly plug stuff in here, but I will say is like until I met stuff and you have someone who's really willing to be patient with you and let you ask every question you want, and you feel comfortable with that person, don't buy a bike from someone that you don't feel comfortable with.
And if that's your only option, then demand that they get you comfortable, right? Force them to sit down with you and answer your questions, because maybe they need to learn that too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because you want the bike to fit you, and you want it to feel comfortable. You don't want to start out.
Well, and okay, so I'll be unplugging the other side of the fence is. You buy, it doesn't matter what brand it is, you buy the bike. I went to Harley-Davidson, I sat on bikes, Stephen helped me, Stephen's an angel. I mean, he's the greatest salesperson here, I think he's wonderful. I just never felt right on any of the bikes. For my body type, I just didn't feel right. Went down the street, sat on a Scout, Corey's like, let's try this one for you. Sat on it, was like, oh, this feels good. He goes, let's take it out for a ride then. Took it out, was like, oh my gosh. And it was sort of like, somebody once told me you can never talk a bride into her wedding dress. They put it on and they know that's the dress. It's sort of what your motorcycle is. It's like, you sit on it, it's like, yep, this is the one.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's
That's
Moon
Motorsports.
They have all kinds of different brands up there. I've never personally been in there, but I've heard great things
It's-
about them.
yeah.
Honda,
There's
Toyota, Nissan, BMW. I'm just
Ducati,
kidding.
everybody. Ducati. Yeah, that's a Ducati. Why not?
Everybody wants to buy me a Ducati. I mean, that's
today.
It is magic though. Like when you sit on the one that's right for you, it's magic.
Yeah.
And you know it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And my second piece to new riders would be just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Just keep showing up. Absolutely. Whatever that means to you. If it means showing up to look at your bike, showing up to start your bike, showing up to ride your bike, showing up to ride with other people, just keep showing up.
And I would say my one piece that I have is, you often hear on other sites, ride your ride, just ride in your comfort zone. Don't let anybody push you out of your comfort zone. Well, if that was the case, I'd still be going down Mayland in second gear around the block over and over again. But it took, at that time, my husband to say, "Come on, I just want to go to McDonald's. Let's just ride to McDonald's." And then it was down Highway 61, and it was over to Minneapolis. It just took somebody that I trust, and I think that's the biggest part. Is you have to be with somebody who's not going to put you in danger, but who's going to push you out of your comfort zone just a little bit to help you grow a little.
Because it's all about growing. I mean, like you said, we'd all be riding up and down the same street, or me, I'd just be riding around my block.
Yeah.
First to the left and to the right.
I think your statement about saying ride your own ride can almost become a defense mechanism to staying the same kind of rider.
That's very true.
So I mean, I get the statement, but I love that you said that.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that if you're doing somebody's doing 90, that you should be doing 90,
Absolutely.
right? You need to ride within your skill level. Right. I mean, that's usually what causes accidents, right? Is somebody that's riding outside their skill level. Right.
And I
Or
also
drugs and alcohol.
take that ride your own ride as like not focusing too much on other riders. Like, let them ride, you ride the way you ride, we all ride differently. So just because I don't ride like you, as long as I'm not endangering your safety or the safety of the group, let me ride my ride.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
This was an amazing get together.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks
Thanks
for
for having
inviting us.
us.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Thanks for having us.
So,
So,
to wrap things up, we'll look back at the camera now because we've been so intent with each other that we didn't really look at you much this episode. But thank you for joining. We appreciate you watching our episode and look forward to seeing you at the next one.
see you next time.
Talk to you. Bye.
Bye.